Hi, I'm Yvette Jones, and this is Talk Fulton. On today's show, how did Fulton County government fare during the 2015 Georgia General Assembly? We'll talk to the county's legislative liaison. And what is behind the MARTA Makeover? The transit system's CEO updates Fulton County commissioners on its progress. That story and more on today's Talk Fulton, which starts right now. We're talking today about the 2015 legislative session and the impact on Fulton County government and its residents. Fulton County commissioners laid out a list of priorities for this year's session, but how did those legislative items fare in the end? Jessica Corbett Dominguez served as the legislative liaison for Fulton County this year. Jessica, welcome to Talk Fulton.
Thank you.
Now, Fulton officials had their eyes on a number of bills, some that were on their legislative list of priorities and some that were not. Before we go into the bill specifically, let's tell everyone who the county contracted with to lobby for them at the Capitol and explain how all of that works, please.
Sure. Fulton County has contracted with a team including Greenberg-Traurig, Peachtree Government Relations, and Thompson Victory Group. This team is responsible for our federal and state lobbying and interacts with our local General Assembly members and members of Congress. And the Department of External Affairs serves as a liaison between those contract lobbyists and the Board of Commissioners and county departments.
Understood. Now let's go to the bills that were not a part of Fulton's legislative agenda but impact the county nonetheless. Let's first deal with the homestead bill.
Sure. This year we did have a portion of our legislative package that addresses legislation that could be detrimental to Fulton County government. And House Bills 628 and 630 actually were part of that package. They would have increased Fulton County's homestead exemption to approximately $60,000. This would have cost the county about $38 million a year in revenue, so it would have been detrimental to our service delivery.
Okay.
The Board of Commissioners, as part of their approval of the legislative package, opposed those bills, and we were able to see those defeated during this session.
Okay. Now what about the transportation bill, Jessica?
Yes, House Bill 170 was one of the major initiatives approved by the General Assembly during this session, and certainly transportation is an issue for everyone in Fulton County and everyone across the state of Georgia. This bill creates about $900 million in new revenue for the state and will allow local governments to see some increased funding from the Georgia Department of Transportation.
Okay.
Georgians will also see some new hotel-motel taxes, and they will also see an end to some tax credits on electric vehicles. So there will be some increased fees in certain areas, but the end result will be more transportation funding across the state. We're still looking to see how this will directly impact Fulton County government.
Okay, good. But it is certainly a need that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Now, there was also legislation that impacts the Atlanta Fulton Library Board of Directors. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yes. House Bill 595 would create, that bill passed both houses of the General Assembly, and it will essentially create some changes in the reporting structure for the library director. Currently, the library director reports to the county manager, and according to this legislation, that individual will now report to the Board of Trustees. It also makes some changes to how the Library Board of Trustees is structured, and so we will see new members of the Library Board of Trustees if this bill is signed into law by the governor.
Okay. Now, what other bills, Jessica, not a part of the county's legislative list of priorities, will impact Fulton County nonetheless?
There were some other bills that were introduced during the session, some of which passed and some did not, but we're continuing to keep an eye on them. One area was legislation that would have allowed a referendum for the city of Atlanta to annex portions of Fulton County. There was other legislation that would have allowed the city of Atlanta to change the boundaries for the Atlanta Public School District. Both of those would have had an indirect impact on Fulton County government, and though the board did not take a position on them, we are monitoring them very carefully. There were other bills across the state, for example, related to how retirement funds are managed in local governments, and a number of other bills. So we're continuing to go through everything that was passed during this session and monitor those and their impact.
Okay, you're a wealth of information on a lot of bills that you monitored. Jessica, we've got a lot more to cover, but let's take a break.
Thank you.
Okay, when we come back, we'll talk about the county's legislative agenda and the board's position on the South Fulton Cityhood bill. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking today about the 2015 Georgia General Assembly and the impact on Fulton County government and its residents. Jessica Corbett-Dominguez served as the legislative liaison for the county this session. Welcome back, Jessica.
Thank you.
So now, during our last segment, we focused on the bills at the Capitol that were not a part of Fulton's legislative agenda, but had an impact on the county nonetheless. Now let's talk about the board's list of priorities. First, since we just talked about the annexation bill, let's deal with the bill that would have allowed South Fulton residents an opportunity to vote on becoming a city.
Yes, thank you. House Bill 514 was a piece of legislation that would have allowed Fulton County residents who live in unincorporated Fulton County to vote during a referendum on incorporating a new city. This would affect the last remaining portion of Fulton County that is unincorporated, so it would be a significant change for Fulton County government. House Bill 514 passed the House and it passed out of the Senate committee, but did not make it through a vote on the Senate floor. However, this legislation is still alive and will be and can be reintroduced during the 2016 session, so we'll be keeping a close eye on that as well.
Sure, a lot of talk about that one as well in the county, so you'll be monitoring that pretty closely, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, another priority area centered around the county's calendar year and health inspection fees. What happened with those?
Sure. We had worked with the General Assembly to identify an opportunity to change the county's fiscal year. Currently, by state law adopted in 1953, Fulton County must have a calendar year budget. And if we were able to have a different fiscal year, we may be able to plan our financial year a little bit more accurately. So this would be a positive thing for Fulton County. Unfortunately, the bill passed through the House, it passed through Senate committee, but it was not adopted by the Senate during the last 2 days of session. So we'll continue to work on that bill in the next session.
Okay. Now, with the new commissioner this year, a few additions were included in the legislative package, like the one protecting homeowner associations. Tell me more about that.
Yes. Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr. had introduced a part of the legislative package that would have allowed the introduction of a homeowners association Bill of Rights. This is an important idea that would protect homeowner associations and residents as developers build new subdivisions. It was modeled after legislation in another state, and although we didn't have a bill sponsor this year, we're continuing to work on some ideas during the break to look for opportunities for this in the next year. Okay. We also had an introduction to the legislative agenda that was brought to us by Commissioner Bob Ellis that would have sought some opportunities to increase 911 funding. Currently, out of every $1.50 911 fee that's collected, cell phone companies are able to keep up to 30 or 40 cents of that money as a cost recovery. So we're seeking an opportunity to make sure that the full $1.50 comes to not only the Fulton County 911 Center, but other 911 centers across the state. This legislation was introduced during the session. The bill sponsor chose to keep that in committee, so it will be reviewed over the summer and the bill will be refined for introduction in 2016.
Okay, and so that's something that you will be monitoring as well, that legislation and what happens with it past this point, correct?
Absolutely.
Anything else that struck your fancy as you monitored these bills? Anything of note that we'll be looking at as we monitor and for the next session?
Well, we were also pleased to see some legislation that will affect our local government partners, such as MARTA. MARTA was able to lift the so-called 50-50 split, which will allow them to use more of their dollars more flexibly. So that was a positive, as Fulton County is a major financial stakeholder in MARTA. We were also glad to see some changes related to a number of areas. For example, judges will see a state-sponsored salary increase, and we know that Fulton County judges have one of the highest caseloads, so that is also a positive. That will affect some other individuals in the justice system as well. We also saw legislation that, again, allows us to legally invest our retirement funds in mutual funds, which is how most local governments handle retirements these days. So that was another positive. So there were many pieces of legislation, hundreds and hundreds of bills, and we feel like Fulton County, as a leader in the state, had a good position and an even better one perhaps in 2016.
Now, I'm going to jump backwards just a little bit because
Sure.
I failed to let you finish discussing the health inspection fees. You want to give me a little more information about that?
Thank you, Yvette. That is a piece of legislation that we actually are looking for an opportunity to address internally. Currently, if restaurants or hotels are inspected, unfortunately, some of those business owners do not pay the fee that's associated with that inspection. We inspect anyway because it's a matter of safety, and we want to ensure that they're compliant with state laws in food preparation and other safety areas. But there is a cost to provide that service, and so we're looking for some opportunities to ensure that everyone pays their fair share and that we're able to collect the revenue that's owed to the county. We're looking at an administrative opportunity to do that, but are certainly working with our legislators, and they're aware of this issue as well.
Okay, so now that the session is over, Jessica, what happens to all of the priority list items that didn't see any movement? Will they come back?
Some of them will come back. It depends on if they were able to cross over from one chamber to the other. So we'll be looking at some of those areas. For example, the South Fulton bill is one that can carry over to the next session, as well as the legislation related to our fiscal year flexibility. We are continuing to compile information, and we'll make sure that we have that available on the Fulton County website.
Awesome. Now, once more, what else should residents expect to see again next year in terms of the bills that were not on the county's priority list?
I think that we will continue to see legislation. There may be some cleanup related to transportation, for example. We will continue working on 911 funding. That is a major area of concern for public safety reasons. And we'll also be working on the fiscal bill that will allow the county to have greater flexibility. Some of the other priority areas we're evaluating and making sure that they are still consistent with the county's goals and priorities, but we know that there will be many areas moving forward. Another area we will continue to monitor is the issue of early voting. There were some attempts to shorten the early voting period, and although that legislation was defeated in 2015, that may be something that could be reintroduced in 2016. So we'll keep a close eye on that as well.
Any final thoughts, Jessica?
It's a very interesting process, and we encourage every resident to know their state legislator, to be engaged and follow along. And if they have an interest in specific legislation, they're certainly welcome to contact our office.
Well, you have been a wealth of information today. You do an amazing job keeping up with all of this.
Thank you so much, Yvette.
Thanks so much for coming, Jessica Corbett-Dominguez. Now, when we come back, the secret behind MARTA's recent success. Stay with us. After decades of what some leaders consider disappointment and acrimony with MARTA, the 9th largest transportation agency in the country has recently made significant positive gains. Its CEO, Keith Parker, makes regular presentations to the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, and during his April update, he reported on more good news for the Transit Authority. FGTV's Felicia has the story.
MARTA is Is definitely getting smarter. So says the head of one of the largest transit systems in the country.
Thank you, Mr.
General
Parker.
Manager and Chief Executive
Commissioner
Officer
Morris,
Keith Parker
actually
rattled
picked up
off a
on
number of
whether or
successes
not a person
and
may be carrying a
improvements
backpack.
for the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority, ranging from an increase in ridership to revenues.
MARTA will now have its third year of balancing the budget and actually adding money to its fiscal reserves. As a result of that information, the folks at Moody's upgraded our overall credit rating. This will save the citizens of our region millions of dollars over the next 10 to 20 years.
While revenues are increasing, wait time for passengers will decrease.
You can now catch a train during the peak periods about every 5 minutes.
However, there will be no increase in fares because of the new efficiency. The transit system is also going green with the addition of new natural gas buses and LED lighting in the stations. Ranked as the second safest transit system in the nation by the Transportation Security Administration, Parker says technology is the key to maintaining that status.
We also have another great project underway called Video Analytics. This is true artificial intelligence. Again, we're one of the first authorities in the nation to utilize this type of technology. MARTA has about 1,200 cameras throughout its system, and these cameras will be able to pick up on abnormal, irregular behavior. So you see that little red box there? This is a person who's ventured off into the onto the trackway, and that type of action would immediately alert our radio control people, so that we could then maybe stop the train or get police officers over there and get that person out of harm's way.
That technology also includes more secure breeze cards and tickets, high-tech security cameras, Wi-Fi access, seats to alert drivers if they fall asleep, and smart bathrooms.
This new restroom is truly state-of-the-art, first of its kind in the nation, where now instead of having a person have to guide you into the restroom and wait for you while you take care of things, this new smart bathroom, when you approach it, there's a camera system that begins an interactive conversation with the customer, lets the customer in, and then gives them a certain amount of time to use the restroom. The restroom will literally talk to the customer and ask, you've been in here 9 minutes, do you need more time?
There are a number of development projects slated for the near future to get more citizens to use mass transit. Following the presentation, Fulton commissioners applauded Parker and the system for appearing to be on the right track. Reporting for FGTV, I'm Felicia Church.
Thanks, Felicia. Now, here are more Talk Fulton facts about MARTA. Future development projects include transit service expansions at the King Memorial Station, the Arts Center, and the Oakland City Station redevelopment project. Service to Clayton County has started in March, and the Buckhead Pedestrian Bridge opened earlier this year. Well, a special thanks once more to Jessica Corbett Dominguez, Legislative Liaison in the Department of External Affairs. And a special thanks to you, of course, for watching. That is all of our time. We invite you to email us to let us know what topics you'd like to see addressed on Talk Fulton. Email us at fgtv.feedback@fultoncountyga.gov. I'm Yvette Jones. We'll see you next time.